Chichi, who is the current executive director of Enterprise Uganda. You're most welcome, Mr. Charles, on the show.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and I'm so delighted to be at the point.
Wow, thank you so much. First of all, let's start with Enterprise Uganda. When I look at what you have in your docket, it's quite a lot. The business development services, trainings and mentorships, access to finance are some of the things, the main services and programs that are currently running at Enterprise Uganda. Run us through, first of all, the vision and objectives that Enterprise Uganda was started with.
Enterprise Uganda, as you rightly said, was started in 2001 and was put into the marketplace to assist in creating dynamic, competitive, world-class entrepreneurs in this country. And in so doing, as an organization, we have put together solutions that address different stages of enterprise development. From a person who has never done a business before, to an individual who has been in business but in an informal way, to somebody who moves from that position of informal entrepreneur to now a micro-entrepreneur, then becomes small, then from small, medium size, then medium size you begin to have branches across the country, and then from there you begin to break into the regional markets and then overseas. All those stages of enterprise growth, we have got solutions for them. In other words, as an entity, as an organization, we provide what we call a one-stop enterprise development facility in the country. For anybody who wishes to create an enterprise that grows non-stop and continues to scale irrespective of the marketplace, irrespective of the kind of products that you started with.
Wow, interesting. Talking about entrepreneurship, when you look at Uganda, currently, statistics show that we are one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the whole world. And in Africa, I think we come in number one place. But unfortunately, that statistic is actually counteracted by another very unfortunate statistic that these businesses do not see their first anniversary, at least 90% of them, or even more sometimes. Well, talking about today, before we go into the work ethics and the work culture, what do you think is the underlying factor that draws back businesses, especially those that are starting, the startups? We have so many startups, but they don't sustain. They're not sustainable. In as far as the entrepreneurs also try to be as innovative, as creative, and try to bring all these new businesses on board, they don't stay for long. Where is the problem when it comes to the entrepreneurship in Uganda, the entrepreneurial skills that Ugandans have? Why doesn't it seem to be sustainable?
I will start by first endorsing the statistics, which says that we are among the most enterprising entrepreneurial nation globally. We're almost consistently in the top 3 globally, which is a good thing. But that is largely, in part, informed by our history. In 1972, we had a certain section of society that was handling almost all aspects to do with business. So it was government with that part of community of individuals, and that's the Asian community. In 1972, that community did not have a proper exit. The head of state just said, please, within 90 days, exit. So the nation got kind of thrust into doing entrepreneurial activities because of that vacuum. But as went in because of the vacuum, we didn't have, one, mentors to look at, two, any structured tuition or education on how to run our businesses so well. But we demystified one thing. We demystified doing business. We saw it as something that's okay, that can be done. And because also the economy had collapsed, jobs were now being created by these fellows who were in this kind of a space. And as such, we began to value enterprise. So that's where Uganda picked up its entrepreneurial acumen and predisposition. Not that we're genetically created like that. And that's why when you cross the border a bit to Tanzania and to Kenya, We, the Ugandans, are more courageous in going to any sector of the economy. And many Ugandans are leading players in almost any sector of the economy, like some of our neighbors where you may not find the same statistic.
Yeah.
But that being said, one thing that you must recognize is that starting an enterprise is one thing. Keeping it in the marketplace is another one. There are two rules which will either keep you there or get you out of the marketplace. The first rule is simply saying, you have become an entrepreneur. Is what you are selling giving me minimum expectations of the solution I'm giving money for? Meeting the basic minimum expectations of the consumer will keep you in the marketplace. But the moment you meet the minimum expectations, how do you know that you have done it? You see repeat business. You see referrals. You see now the customer giving you advice on how to serve them even better.
Yeah.
That means you have conquered the first law. Many times when you just begin to see money, you forget that this customer here came in because you fulfill certain things. Then you begin to take them for granted and you lose that particular entry point. Should you manage to fix that first entry point or first law of entry into the marketplace, the second law is next to it. And the second law says you must be ready to compete with anybody who supplies the same solution in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And the competition has got nothing to do with age brackets, size of capital, your technology access, or the quality of HR that you have. A person selling chicken, and you have got a total of 200 chicken in your farm, will be competing with Yuga Chick, which could have 100,000 chicken in their farm every week ready for sale. And when customers come, they don't say, let's this week try to look after this younger one who has got fewer chicken. Then later, let's give the big one also next week. The marketplace simply says value for money.
Yeah.
Competition is real. If you are not ready to compete, you will be wiped out.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep saying that one of the most difficult territories you can push your brother, your neighbor, your son, your voter to is private sector. It's the most cruel part of the game. But as you put them there, teach them the rules. These first two rules I've just mentioned here require you to address some 5 pillars of enterprise success: entrepreneurship and leadership, human resources, production and operations, marketing and customer care, and then access to finance. If you concentrate on access to finance, and this entrepreneurial acumen is not drilled, and all the other pillars are substandard, this finance will disappear.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. And Mr. Chichi, one of the things that young people usually bring out is access to finance. That's always the first thing. We don't have capital. We don't have capital. And I've seen that complaint way many times than I can remember. But talking about the culture in the workplaces, there is pressure that rises, especially on young people, when it comes to entrepreneurship. We are discouraged from day one to work 8 to 5 jobs. I've seen that very commonly, especially when you come to these conferences. They'll tell you don't work for a salary for all your lifetime. They will tell you, the best thing to do is to start your own business, get started in life. Don't go on, doing these 8 to 5 jobs. They call them 8 to 5s. And it puts a lot of pressure on young people. I've personally been there where I'm like, okay, what should I do? Should I start a mobile money business? Yet, you've just begun working. And sometimes you don't even have enough to go buy. You don't have enough to pay for rent and so on. And you're thinking about starting a business because everyone is telling you this is the way to go. If you're going to make money, they'll ask you, is Patrick Bitature an employee? Is Sudhir an employee? They will tell you all these people are self-employed and they began with pancakes and so on. When do you think is the right time, especially for a young man or a young woman, to get into a business, to start self-employment? Because the pressure really comes in really early and sometimes we get in unprepared.
Very good observation, and I want to start from the very point where you said that somebody has started work, and immediately people are telling the person that please try as much as possible to be edging out to go to the ownership of an enterprise yourself.
Yeah.
Here are some of the facts anybody who gets into a job needs to know first. First is that the job you are going to get, no amount of money you will be served or you will be given will be enough. The needs, the places to spend that money, the people to help, your relatives, your parents, the needs are limitless. So the first thing you need to appreciate is that there's what they call budget lines. And in the office, when you get employed, you obey them. Budget line for this is this. Don't mix these lines. They are always separate. And some organizations do that and they get away with it.
Yeah.
You as an individual, you are left to do that on your own. Allocate that salary. The salary is 300,000. Can you put 50% of that money to your upkeep and for you to spend on anybody that you want to spend it on? 50%.
Yeah.
Can you put 30% as saved money? The money you put aside as savings. Then you can now put another 10% for your God and philanthropy.
Yeah.
And then 10% emergency. The 100% has been allocated. The rule here is obeying those allocations. The 50%, if you keep on using it as much as you want, no problem. It's okay. Provided the other 30%, you saved it and you put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, to just illustrate that it can be done, there's a law in this country that comes from an organization called NSSF. It now calls for every employer to deduct 5% of your salary. Then they top up another 10% of your salary to go there, making a total of what? 15% equivalent of your salary. At the end of your work life, many people, that's the only money they have. And do you know that when the law said this must be deducted, we adjusted. We lived our lives. You knew that you are getting this money less than 5%. But the other 95%, okay, put taxes to take away part of it also.
Yes.
The other, even if you took away, because payers earn just 30%.
Yeah.
So now if they
that means
70,
35.
yeah, total of 35.
Yeah,
the other 65 is in your hands.
Yeah.
Many human beings will end their careers as salary earners when there's nothing to show that they touched the 65%. The only focus is the other equivalent of 15% of their money. 10 came from the employer, 5 was from them. That is the only thing they can point at.
Yeah.
And then, when they access it, check after 24 months, according to the study by NSSF, within 24 months, they again destroy that one.
It's obliterated.
Because you didn't practice saving and investing. When people are told that start your business and get out of the 5 to 8 o'clock work, to me I say it's always a process. You don't do that immediately, but start the saving and investing. And the investing routes are many.
Yeah.
The easiest starting ones is just by putting it in a fixed deposit account.
Yeah. They're also unit trust.
They also unit trust.
I've seen,
and there are many.
Yeah,
and they are
quite many.
credible organizations.
Yes.
And then should those ones grow up, or increase to a sizable volume, this country is a country in its formative years. I come from Soroti. There was a piece of land that used to be normal village land, but next to Soroti Flying School. Some 2005, I got a piece of land from there and it was going 1 acre at 580,000. Today, the same acre is going at 18 million.
Wow.
Some 18 years down the road, even if you had picked the 580,000 shillings, converted it into dollars, and then you try to see with the exchange rate of today how much it is in dollars, it would have multiplied no less than 30, 40 times in dollar terms. What am I saying? The earlier you begin to appreciate the power of saving and in parallel investment, the better for you, because you've just started a journey which in Africa today is an opportunity for you to build a portfolio 10, 15, 20 years down the line that will shock you. Yeah. I got 12 acres of land at that time. 580,000, hardly 87 million shillings. Today, the same 10 or so acres of land, instead of 7 or whatever million shillings, I'm talking of 900 million.
Wow.
Moving from 7 million. It can only happen in Africa.
Yeah.
In other words,
Absolutely.
We are living in a moment where the only investors currently in this kind of environment are mostly indigenous fellows.
Yeah.
But the day we fix the roads, we fix electricity, we fix bridges, that's the end of protecting what we call land resources for just the indigenous fellows. People will now say, I can go to Soroti, I can go to Adjumani, I can now go to Tororo, I can go and plant in Kayunga pineapples and deliver them to the airport. Yeah. You will be having Europeans neighboring Baganda in Kayunga, because the moment there's a good road, I can lift my pineapples. Within 45 minutes, I'm in Kampala. Another 45 minutes, I'm at the airport. The pineapples are leaving. Yeah. So this is the moment for a young person, for any Ugandan, to really maximize the opportunity of saving and investing. Yeah. But it takes a while for you now to say, I have been saving and investing. Given the kind of volume of business resources I have saved, I can now have most of my time occupied by my investments. And as such, I can now transition out of the 8 to 5 o'clock employment to now being an entrepreneur. Wow. But apart from just using the volume of savings and the portfolio, you can also use your love for a particular career, for a particular kind of engagement. For example, Ochichi will love to engage with Ugandans in the business arena. I feel more fulfilled than probably going and saying, I have a hotel in Bugolobi. I need to be going to see how customers are being checked in. I want to hear them come out saying, this was a beautiful, comfortable hotel. Yeah. I will not get the same joy as interacting with the villager, and the villager 6 months later telling me, Chichi, do you know what? I started with 2 chicken. Now I've got 200 of them. I pay my own school fees. Today at Enterprise Uganda, we have 179,000 Ugandans whose lives have been transformed. A young man in Soroti who started with 20,000 shillings 9 years ago, today has got a block of flats, 2 of them, totaling 13 units. Oh. And then 3 bungalows. And then a beautiful home for the mom in the village. And then he bought 8 acres of land. 80. That young man, that kind of a testimony, that kind of impact, I would hesitate to move to any other career and just say, Ochichi, you found your groove. Yeah. Keep at it.
Wow. Talking about careers, you seem to be a very diverse man. You've worked with several banks, PTA Bank, for example, and several other financial institutions in Nairobi. How has it been for you? Like you mentioned, your passion seeing people come out of poverty and build enterprises. How did you transition from the work life that you were used to in the what I would call the posh sector? Because when people talk about the banking, people working in the banks, they definitely think about people earning really, really good figures money, there. Yes. What really led to that transition in your life to get to do enterprise and actually encourage other people to do the same?
Life is interesting. I think the most important thing you need to tell yourself is avail yourself for opportunity to enjoy whatever you do and make that enjoyment begin to impact somebody's life. In other words, when I started out my career in banking, I was put into the credit division. From credit there, you begin seeing people saying, oh, what are the requirements for me to take a loan? 3 years audited accounts, they're here.
Yeah.
What else? Land title, yes, this year. What else? Will you be able to employ a good manager? Yes, I have gotten even an appointment letter, it is here. When you begin to dig deep and start telling this fellow that the 3-year audited accounts you have just brought here, did you read them? You say, well, it was produced by some consultant. You wanted them. Yeah. You told him, you gave me a checklist. I've fulfilled your checklist. That checklist was supposed to tell you that even before you go to the bank, to what extent have you been handling your own personal resources? That checklist is supposed to tell you that, you know what, this is your net worth. If you overexpose yourself beyond your net worth, you are likely to overburn yourself. Now, as I began to enjoy my career and started to educate borrowers, my customers, some of them would even say, Mr. Chichi, have you talked to you after I submitted my application? Do you know what? I need to fix a few things and make my money from the current operations. I don't need a loan.
Yeah.
Now, that is counterintuitive for somebody who needs to meet targets on lending. But for Chichi, I have assisted somebody to realize that, do you know what? There's a lot of uncollected money that I'm seeing from your books. And it seems you have a problem of collecting money from people who have consumed your services. What's the problem? Then the person will begin to say, you know, the problem is this, and you know, they are not even paying me, and that's why I'm in need of a loan. You are taking a loan to fix a disease which is not yet concluded. That loan is going to crack you.
Yeah.
So when you educate a person like that, he says, you know what? I've now grown, I'm now coming with a bigger loan 4 times than the one I would have taken earlier on. And then you remain friends.
Yeah.
In the process, you begin to open up your own avenue as a career person. And that's how I walked into the space of consultancy.
Yeah.
I didn't just go in there because I had appropriate academic qualifications, which I have.
Definitely.
But I went there because I spoke the language of a customer.
Yeah.
And from then onwards, I've remained always connected with what it takes to give solutions that impact a person immediately. Is that I really walking to a medical doctor's clinic, and then he begins asking you to first stand on one leg. He's testing something.
True.
Then he says, stand on the other leg as well. Then he tells you, next, can you just lie straight on the bed? I want to check something. You lie. You know, when you begin to see somebody who seems to know his trade, his calling, you are before an authority. Whatever it tells you to do, you just go ahead and do it.
True.
And that's how I worked on my career. And one thing leads to another, then to another, then to another. As I was in the commercial bank, I went to a development bank in Nairobi. Yeah. From a development bank in Nairobi, I came to lead Enterprise Uganda. From leading Enterprise Uganda, you are invited to sit on certain boards. From sitting on different boards, you begin to see how other corporate entities are run, and you begin to now give consultancy to corporates. Yeah. So one opportunity done so well will open more doors for you. Absolutely. As you continue to build your career.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chichi. That's a very wonderful insight inside, of course, our first edition. We are getting into our very short break, and we are returning shortly. Remember, today we are talking work ethics and the work culture, building these to enable us, of course, increase the opportunities of employment, but also build investments that are sustainable. My name is Anthony. We return shortly. And of course, one of the things that you need to do right now is to get to our Twitter, that is at Smart24TV, and get to give us feedback there. Today, like I mentioned, I'm with Mr. Chichi, who is the Executive Director of Enterprise Uganda. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.